start this next portion of the podcast. And this, we did delve into a little bit last week, where we talked about Mark's passion, the one-man gang here. I don't know if we ever say his name is actually Mark, but Double M. The one-man gang's passion, which is rapping. So we're going to do something where I kind of interview him and talk to him about how he got started, and just go into that. So we did talk about in the last podcast, your sister kind of got you into music. Your sister...
my mother.
Your mother had records, yes. And then you started listening to rap albums, etc. But when did you first start wanting to be a performer? Because that takes something special to be able to get on stage. I've had cello recitals and that type of thing, but to be a rapper, you're on stage by yourself,
right?
And you're performing in front of an audience that is probably fairly judgmental.
William Gates, what's going on, bro?
So how did that come about?
Well, the performing part actually came later because all I wanted to do at one point was just rap, you know? And where it started at least with as far as the rap part, was really just kind of listening to different rap as a young man. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world, like to hear Run DMC rap, and then with the Gazelles or the Kangos on, and the Shell Tops and the Dookie Rope Jewelry. They were just the coolest people in the world to me. So it's like, man, I want to, do that. But, at a young age, I knew I didn't really have the skill for it. I even remember the first rap I wrote. I had a white boombox that you could record, and it had my dad had a mic, because my dad used to sing gospel all the time.
Right, I remember those boomboxes that you had to plug in.
Yeah, I could plug the mic in. So on one side I could record, the other one I could play. So I would play the music, but I didn't really have an instrumental, so I would keep hitting rewind real quick. So, I remember one of my first raps, I said something about this, the second verse, you better call a nurse or a hearse, right? And of course, just the words rhyming. I'm like, oh, that's decent, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask. So in the beginning, did you approach it more like, I just have to make rhyming sentences, or what was your approach when you first started?
My approach was to make two words rhyme, and if it made sense, that was great. If it didn't,
almost like a limerick poem.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So, it was really nothing technical when I first started. It was just being able to rhyme the words. And then I remember my older brother, Kenny Mathis, had a little studio in his basement. And I still wasn't at the point of really writing my own raps, but I had.
And how old were you at this age?
Oh man, I don't remember. I don't think I was 12 yet. Somewhere around there. And I didn't really have my own raps, but I pawned off this a verse by Master Ace on the Symphony as being my own rap. And my brother was so impressed with that. He was like, "Oh man, this such and such thing." And of course, I was kind of lying, like, "Yeah, I wrote that" or whatever. And then it came to me where I'm like, I really want to write my own stuff. You know what I mean? I don't want to go around being a fraud or anything.
Right.
So I just kind of would always try to write something. I remember I moved to a neighborhood when I was like 14 years old, 14 or 15. And I met James O'Hagan, who might or might not be watching right now. I met him, and the crazy thing was, first day in the neighborhood, he rides a bike up to me. First thing he asked me, not my name or anything, "Yo, do you rap?" I said, "Yeah," because at this time I was starting to write my own raps. So we kind of got together and we were writing rhymes together or what have you, and he was telling me that I was decent. Even before him, actually, I had a friend named Chauncey and a friend named Jeff. And we kind of started writing stuff together. But, when I met James, I got a little more serious about it. And through James, I met a guy named Ben Willis, who at the time, he was a DJ and he made beats, and we called him DJ Massey. And when I met him, it got a little more serious. know what I mean? Like we were recording songs every day, even if it was just one verse.
Mm-hmm.
We would record a song in his basement and just had a bunch of songs together. Then we decided to go to the studio. I was 16 for the first time I went into the studio. And we were a group called Universal Images, me and Ben Willis and DJ Massey. And we had recorded 3 songs. And, you know, we thought those 3 songs were the greatest things ever. You know,
Do you remember the titles of them?
While You Were Sleeping, and I forget the other two. But While You Were Sleeping was the big one, the one that everybody seemed to like. I was working at MBNA at the time as a telemarketer, okay? And
But isn't it harder to rap as a group? Because you have to get, like, even doing the podcast, it would be much easier, I think, if it was just one of us talking and you know, you don't have to have a cohesive flow in the conversation and etc.
I think it's easier, personally.
You think it's easier?
Because it's not the pressure on you to write the whole song. It's just all I gotta do is write 16 bars or whatever the case.
And you have that added energy of other people
Of
being
another
able to
person.
break,
So
right?
no, it was never hard. It was, you know, for me personally, it was, hey, this is what the subject is. Start writing. Okay, cool. You know what I mean? I know it was competitive because you, of course, want to, even though you're working towards the same goal, you want to have the better verse. That's always, you know, as an MC, that's always a pride you
Right,
have.
like even thinking of like symphony, those guys they all
Right.
jump into symphony. Which one stands out the most? Is it Marley Marl? Is it Big Daddy Kane? Is it yeah? So,
Well, it was either Kane or G Rap in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think everybody did well on that song. But nonetheless, we had started Universal Images. Around that time, I met my man Marketech. Now, for those of you who don't know, the songs I have on YouTube are primarily produced by Marketech.
yeah, I think you give him credit on all of them.
Yeah, there's one produced by Ziggy P, and I'll get into him for a minute. Shout out Ziggy P. You know, I hooked up with Marketech when we was younger, around that same age, 16 or whatever, you know.
And that's
And,
Greg's brother, right?
That's, yeah, Greg Watkins, Grouchy Greg.
Grouchy Greg.
And,
Me and Grouchy Greg were in high school together. We were in the same class. Matter of fact, I think we were in
Yeah.
elementary school together too. But
Oh,
yeah, Grouchy Greg.
Yeah, I went to school with Grouch for 1 year, and you know, Marketech was a grade behind me. So, you know, I came from another school from William Penn to Glasgow, and we went to Glasgow together. But you know, me and Marketech had did like 1 or 2 things back then, and you know, fast forward a little bit, some years ago, I had wanted to make some songs, you know. And the problem was I didn't have anybody to produce them. I don't make beats. Not at this time, but I'm working on it. And I hit Marketech up. I said, look, man, you know, it's always been my dream to make an album, you know. I don't necessarily care about the success. That would be great. You know what I mean? Being rich would be great or what have you, you know.
But exploring
that-
your passion is
it's
where
one
you
of
wanted
it's
to.
my passion.
Right.
So I hit him up. I said, look, you know, I've always wanted to make an album, blah, blah. And literally seconds later, he said, let's do it. So we hooked up. We recorded at Wonderland Record Studio right there in the store. And we recorded 3 songs. And none of them are on YouTube, the first 3 we recorded. But it was No Time for Foreplay, Number One Girl, and Mic in Hand. Actually, Mic in Hand is on YouTube. It's just not on our channel.
On
which I have to
the
change.
Gorilla Gang, yeah.
Marketech actually put up Mic in Hand. He's featured on it, and I got another guy named Dig Sentences.
Are they on Reverb?
Mic in Hand might be on Reverb.
I think Mike in Hand. I'm sort of familiar with Mike in Hand.
But it was me, Diggs, and Marketech, and you know, we recorded those 3, and then not too long after that, my father had passed, and I wrote this song called "The Greatest," and
All right.
you know, I was ready to record it, and I knew I was going to give my father a shout out at the end. You know, I did not say, you know, Fred Mathis Jr. rest
But the
in
whole
peace or whatever.
song is about your dad.
No, not The Greatest. No, Save Me a Seat is about
Save
my
Me a
father.
Seat, yes.
The Greatest is
Yes, I know what you mean.
yeah, it's definitely one of my all the songs are my favorites. I can't really pick one, but The Greatest.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to distinguish, but there, I'm sure there's songs that are more
meaningful.
personal
Yeah,
to you than others.
yeah.
My favorite song isn't probably a personal song.
Right.
Like I know there's a song that's kind of a tribute to your mom. I know there's a song that's a tribute to your dad.
Yeah.
And those got to be a little more personal than I Don't Have a Problem, which is just about
right, about
drinking
right.
and that type of thing.
The funny
I don't have a problem.
the funny thing is, I Don't Have a Problem, I think, came after the greatest. Hey Michelle, what's going on, sis? I Don't Have a Problem was the most fun I had in the studio ever.
It seems like that, and I think that's why it's relatable to me, because it seems like, first of all, I know you come across as angry guy and all that, and people don't get that you have a sense of humor. Like this fucking dude will will randomly send me like a voice message on Facebook Messenger telling me some story that he turns into a joke. So people don't get that because he looks like angry all the time, and even I mean
Bill Gates said 30-second clips.
Yeah. So I get that. Like even my daughter, she's like, why are your eyebrows look like that?
Right.
Because I look angry, but I mean that's just how I look. I don't know. But yet his personality is not his outward projection.
Right.
And I don't think people get that. So I don't have a problem. Number one, I love the beat and all that, but it's him having fun. So that's what's most relatable to me, because I know him,
right?
And the having fun part of it,
John Boyer
comes
Jr.,
through.
what's going on, brother?
And I Don't Have a Problem.
Yeah,
where he's being that person that sends me fucked up Facebook messages, clips, and all that stuff. So I understand that part of it, and that's what makes that like a fun song, and also why it has the most views on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it, the reason why I had so much fun with it is, for those of y'all who don't know Market Tech, he's probably one of the most talented people I ever met. Now, with me saying that, I'm not saying he's the greatest at this or that. He's talented at so many different things. Like he paints, he can act, he can play the piano. He does
Renaissance man.
Yeah, he raps.
Yeah,
you
have
very
more
talented
than one
rapper.
talent. Yes.
Right. So we're in the studio, and I'm like, listen, I didn't even tell him beforehand. I'm like, I need your help because, I wrote out everything on I Don't Have a Problem, even the counselor's part. Because basically, if you haven't heard the song, number one, go to Gorilla Gang 3421 YouTube page and listen to it. I Don't Have a Problem is basically me at an AA meeting, and I'm going back and forth with the person holding the meeting, or the sponsor, or whatever you call him. Mm-hmm. I'm going back and forth with him about how I don't have a drinking problem, and he's trying to tell me that I do. And that's basically what the chorus is me and his interaction. And basically the verses are me telling him why I don't have a problem. But nonetheless, I didn't tell him beforehand that I was going to use him to be the counselor or the person holding the meeting. So I'm like, look, I need you to read these parts and whatever. And he just, he's like, okay. So right away he just changes his voice. Yeah, let's get started. He just changes his voice, turns into a whole nother person. I didn't even know he could act like that. And I think I said something at the end.
What is it? The customer service voice.
Yeah. At the end, I said, man, I didn't know you could, act like that. He's, oh, yeah, I took some, just simple, and this guy's into everything, and he does everything pretty well. So big shout out to Market Tech. But he made it a lot of fun for me, just the way he played the counselor and everything. Mm-hmm. And we started going back and forth. So that was a lot of fun. I think after that, I did Save Me a Seat, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Save Me a Seat is a song I did for my father who passed away in January 14th, 2015. I actually started writing the song 2 weeks before he passed at a warehouse that me and you both worked at that I'll leave unnamed. And I'm literally, I was in a department where I had to pick customer orders for them to be shipped out. And I'm walking around picking these orders, and I'm literally crying as I'm writing the song. Like, I'm having a tough time even being at work.
For sure.
Which I couldn't take off because I was a temp at the time, and they wouldn't give me paid time off for bereavement. It was unpaid, and I couldn't afford it. So I had to be at work struggling with my father's death. I thank you all very much for that. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, I wrote the song about my father.
But you should thank him, though. I think you should thank him because it gave you something.
Well, yeah.
I think it gave you something. I mean, obviously the at the time sucked, but I think it gave you something.
Yeah, it did. You know,
So,
I was
so
able
you
to...
should thank him. Hey, yeah, thank you for giving me that drive. Thank you for giving me that. You know.
Yeah. Well, I walked around writing the song, and for me, writing is not putting it down on paper. I actually keep everything up here. I have a pretty good memory when it comes to certain things. And I walked around writing it, crying, choked up and everything. I think I even had some people ask me, was I okay? And of course I didn't get into it because, you know, I wasn't tight with them like that. I just, you know, thank you for your concern and everything. So
It's a personal thing, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote that song and we sat down and recorded it. And after recording it, Marketech turned around to me and he said, I think that's the best song that you made so far, you know. Which, it's crazy because when he first gave me the beat, I completely wasn't thinking about doing a song about my father over that beat. And the more and more I listened to it, I'm like, well, it's kind of fitting to me. I like the way it sounds. So, you know, I had even asked him, I said, yo, do you think it'd be crazy if I did the song about my father over there? He was like, well, he directed me to another artist that did a song called Reminding Me of Fish, if I'm not mistaken. The artist who wrote that song basically wrote it about his grandfather who used to take him fishing all the time. So I listened to that song, and it's kind of in the same vein. And I was like, okay, you know, let's go ahead and do that. So that's how Save Me a Seat came about. And out of that song, which is funny, I wrote a song about my mother called The Real MVP. Now, this song is probably the song that I'm most proud of because I let my mom hear the song about my dad. And I remember when my mom heard it, she said to me, wow, you really loved your dad. That made me feel great and bad at the same time because I almost felt like she was saying, you know, you really loved him, but you didn't do a song about me. Now, that might not be what she meant, but that's kind of how it was.
I can see that's what you would take out of it. I think anybody would take that out of it.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about writing songs. Like, say you were an artist and you painted a portrait of your dad, and I could see your mom saying, hey, that's really great. That's a really great portrait.
Yeah.
But then, and it's probably more you than your mom.
Yeah.
That your ego hit you and was like, well, shit, I ain't do anything for my mom.
Well, not just that, though. I felt like my dad wasn't here to hear the song I wrote about him. He was gone by the time it was recorded and everything. You understand? Even if my dad was alive and I wrote that, you know, or he heard it, he would almost be like, you know, not why did you do the song for me, like ungratefully, but
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Just from what you've told me about him, it would be like
he didn't like a lot of attention and stuff like that. So
exactly. So
you know, my mom said that, and I'm like, okay. I said I got to write a song about my mom. Once again, I wrote it in the same warehouse. And it came a lot quicker. And the funny thing was, there's a lot of crazy things about this song about my mom. So one day I'm at my sister's house, my sister Juanita. I'm at her house, and this song comes on I never heard before. Now I can hear Lionel Richie in it, but I don't know. I'm like, who's this? And they're like, that's the Commodores. The song is called Zoom. Instantly fell in love with the beat. And one of the reasons I fell in love with the song, period, there's a line in there where Lionel Richie says, something to the effect, I like to fly away, or something like that. That was almost how my dad was talking when it was time for him to pass. Because my dad wasn't like, oh, I'm sick. My dad was like, I'm ready to go. Right. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing left. I'm ready to go. So I was like, this would have been the perfect beat to do my dad's song over. I'm like, I'm going to do the song about my mom over that. Once that was done, I just pretty much wrote the song with no problem. The Kevin Durant MVP speech. I heard it years before that, and I always said it'd be dope to do a song about my mom and take what he said about his mom and put it
And make
you
her
know.
the real VP. Yeah.
Right. So hence that's how I came up with the song title and the chorus, And, while we was recording it, I asked Markitect to put the Tupac from Dear Mama where he says, "You always was a black queen, mama." Of course, I left the crack fiend out of there because my mom was never on drugs.
Right.
But, and I came up with that. And I remember I played it for my buddy Adam. I don't know if he's still on here or not. My buddy Adam said, "You wrote your own Dear Mama song." I'll never forget he said that.
I thought the same thing when I heard it.
Yeah. And he was very excited. A lot of people, I haven't heard too many people not. But the biggest thing was I played it for my mom. And my mom was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." Then about a day later, she's like, "Can you get that song on a CD for me?" So, so she really liked it. And, I wanted her to know how much I appreciated her. And the funny thing about
and I think it comes across in the song, though. If anybody listens to Real MVP on our YouTube channel, it comes across like it literally is his version of Dear Mama, but not a copy of, or not a. It's not a copy of Dear Mama. It's not a version of, like, you didn't try to copy Dear Mama and throw it into a song and put your own label in. You literally made a song that is completely different, but relatable to Dear Mama.
Right.
So and that comes across in the song.
And everything is a song is true to form. Nothing in it is fabricated. Everything, like when I talk about my mom calling me up to change the TV channel for it, that was real. That was real. On 6th Street, my mom would look. There was a playground in the back. My mom would look out that window. "Mark, come here." I'm like, "Yes, Mom." I'm thinking I'm in trouble because Mom would tear her behind up. You understand? We had to pick out our own belt. You understand? So I'm running up. I'm like, "Yeah, Mom, what is it? Can you change the channel for me?" By then, her face softened up. But when she called you, you thought you were in some kind of trouble. So I'm all of that was real. You know what I mean? Nothing in there. My mom, my mom and father got married when I was about 11 or 12 years old. Okay. So they had their struggles in their relationship or what have you. So my mom was essentially a single parent. My dad took me, on weekends and everything, and he, paid his due. You understand? I think my sister's father was almost the same way, except he was further away, so she wasn't with him as much. My brother's dad, my older brother, wasn't involved as much as he could have been. So my mom basically did all of this by herself. And I don't remember my mom ever getting a handout from anybody or anything. So I just wanted to honor her while she was still here, because I honored my father.
But in a sense, it was too late because he wasn't able to hear the song, which like we said, he probably would have been like, "How the fuck are you making a song about?"
Yeah, he'd probably been like, "Oh, that that's nice, Mark, but